Okay, welcome to your answer video for this, the 14th Reachback. Today is Thursday. Hopefully you're getting through the week okay. Not too many uh, encounters with uh, nothing to do, and you have lots of schoolwork to keep you busy during this time. So as we go through these questions, make sure you copy down the answers. Don't just watch the video and just listen. Make sure you make notes of things that you're doing incorrectly or not doing properly or not showing, because those notes that you make and those little mental jots you take are going to help increase the likelihood that you're going to remember proper procedures next time you encounter a question like it. So with that said, let's go on to question number one. It says negative 0.9 plus 6.25. So if we were to estimate, and I would say, what's negative 1 plus 6? Our answer would be 5. And the way we do that is we say, what do we have more of, negatives or positives? Well, we have more positives. How many more is the difference between the positives and negatives? So difference, of course, is subtraction. So if I take what I have more of and subtract what I have less of, that'll tell me how many more positives I have than negatives. So we take that, subtract, put a 0 there to help me see my place value. 5 take away 0 is 5. 2 take away 9, can't do it, so I borrow. 12 take away 9 is 3, and 5. So I have 5.35 more positives than I do negatives, and that's your answer. Question 2, the product of negative 0.55 and negative 4. So we know right off the bat, because it's a negative times a negative, it's a positive. If I was to estimate, I'd say negative 1 times negative 4, which is a positive 4. So then what we're going to do is we're going to drop our decimals and just put 5, 5, and 4, and we're going to multiply them out. 20, 22. And since my estimation over here was a positive 4, the only place I can put my decimal to make it true is right there. And I have positive 2.2 as my answer. Okay, so the next question, if I thought, what is 3 take away 6, right? Or a 3 plus negative 6, right? Because I can change it to addition and the opposite. What do I have more of? I have more negatives. How many more do I have? Well, I have to subtract to figure it out. So I'm going to take this negative 6.25, or the subtracting of 6.25, and I'm going to subtract my positives from it. Again, I'm going to put a 0 down there. 5 take away 0 is 5. Borrow. 12 take away 4 is 8. 5 take away 3 is 2. So therefore, I have 2.85 more negatives than I do positives. If I want to double check my work, I can take a calculator. Say, what is 3.4 take away 6.25? And it will tell me it's negative 2.85. And that's the way you'd have to do it, on paper and pencil. Your next question 4 is, what is 4.862 divided by 0.02? So if I thought of it this way, and I was to think about equivalent fractions, right? If I was thinking division set up like this, I was to multiply it both by 100. And the reason why 100 is I want to make sure I get rid of all the decimals. 100 will move it twice here, move it twice there. I get 486.2 divided by 2. That's going to be the same question as 4.862 divided by 0.02. So when I set this up and divide it by 2, I get 2. Oh, sorry, 4. I get 4. I get 3. And I get decimal 1. So your answer is a positive 243 decimal 1. If you want to check it with a calculator, 4.862 divided by 0.02 equals 243.1. Question number 5 comes from our rational number chapter. It's the subtraction or the addition of a negative fraction and a positive fraction. The procedure for doing this is the exact same as if it was a positive. You find your common denominator. We're going to use 35 here. An equivalent fraction to negative 3/7, that's a 7, over 35 will be negative 15. The equivalent fraction to 3/5 that has a denominator of 35. 3 times 7, oh, what was that, times 7? Oh, my pen is not working very well. Is 21 35ths. So once we have that, our rule when we multiply and subtract fractions is to keep the denominator and add your numerator. So negative 15 plus 21, which is 635. And 6 over 35 is in lowest terms because the only thing that's divisible into 6 is 3 and 2 and 6, none of which are factors of 35, so that is lowest terms. Question 6, we have 3/4, take away 2 and 1/8. Whenever you have mixed fractions, it's always easiest to change it to improper. Once you have that common denominator, we're going to use 8. That one won't change. This becomes 6/8. Subtract your numerators and keep your denominator. 6 take away 17 is negative 11. So your answer is negative 11/8 or negative 1 and 3/8. Either one's fine. Question 7, we have the product of negative 2/5 and a positive 3 1/4. Again, we're going to change that mixed fraction into an improper fraction. And we're going to simply multiply the numerators to get negative 26 over positive 20, which is negative 1 and 6/20, which is equal to negative 1 and 3/10. Now, some of you might have cross-reduced here and got negative 1 over 2, in which case you still would have gotten negative 13 over 10, which is still going to reduce down to negative 1 and 3/10 as your final answer. Question 8, we have 5/7 divided by a negative 7. So we're going to take our first fraction, and we're going to divide it by, instead of negative 7, we're going to think of it as being a fraction, negative 7 over 1. The easiest way to divide fractions is to multiply by the reciprocal. The reciprocal of negative 7 over 1 is negative 1 over 7. Then we're going to multiply our numerators to get negative 5 and multiply our denominators to get 49. And our final answer is negative 5/49. Question 9, we have the square root of a mixed fraction. And when we have the square root of a mixed fraction, the easiest way for us to tackle it is to change it. I made a mistake here. Oopsie daisy. That should be 5. Oops, we'll just change it right now. Let's pretend it's 5. It's supposed to be 5 and 19/25. So if it was 5 and 19/25 as a mixed fraction, that is going to be 125. It's going to be 144 over 25 if it was 5. I made a mistake. Which is going to be equal to what fraction multiplied by itself was this 144 over 25? Well, the answer is going to be 12 over 5. So therefore, your answer is going to be 12 over 5, which is equal to 2 and 2/5, which is equal to 2.4. So either one is fine. Now, if you went to find the square root of 4 and 19/25 and you actually found it, you could change that to a decimal being 4 decimal, and that would be 38/76. So this is the same question. And if you took your calculator and said, what is the square root of 4.76 and said square root, you would say it's roughly approximately 2.18. So you'd say approximately 2.18. That's also correct if you wrote it that way. But I made a mistake, so no biggie. And finally, question 10 is what is the square root of 0.0025? So the secret to this is tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths. If this question was written as a fraction, it would be the square root of 25 10,000ths. What fraction times itself is 25 10,000ths? 5 and 5 are your numerators, 100 and 100 are your denominators. So therefore, your answer as a fraction is 5/100ths, and as a decimal, it's 5/100ths. Okay, thanks for watching the answer video. As always, wash your hands, maintain good social distancing, and don't let your boomer teacher drive you crazy.